Oh, all right, are we all ready to go?
I think so. So if
Just a couple housekeeping things to start with.
sure, go for it.
I was able to get that information for you, Nancy, for who pays double pay or more. At Park Rose, Molalla River, North Clackamas, Corvallis, what was that one? Centennial and St. Helen. So I said I'd get that for you. I got that for you. And then the other thing was, and don't get me wrong, we were having some good discussions yesterday about different things, but I would really, just because there is a lot, I would really like us to focus on asking questions that clarify what we're asking for, if it's not clear, rather than more of a back and forth of scenarios, because I feel like we can do that when we start talking about proposals, counter proposals, and that will get us through everything, because I really want to hopefully have a good chunk of these 3 days to really dig into these proposals and work back and forth, more collaboratively in that time frame. I just don't want to be proposing stuff that's new stuff on day 3, right? So if that's okay, I just thinking about it last night. I thought that might make more sense.
Well, Hobie, there will be some of the articles that are coming up where we haven't given proposals, but I think you have some rationale as to why we aren't providing a proposal, because we have information about currently. I mean, an example is training, where we've looked at that language, we've looked at what we're doing, and since we made very, very few proposals for change here, I guess what we'd like to be able to do is share in some of those articles when we get to them why we didn't feel a need to make a change. So anyway, we'll try to keep that to a minimum. We do think it's a great idea for you to finish today, if you can, with your proposals, and then that leaves us for tomorrow to have an opportunity to start interacting, try and get some of them tentatively agreed to tomorrow. So.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking. I mean, I realize that sometimes things are just not clear, maybe saying it in a way that somebody might be like, not quite sure what that means. That's not what I'm talking about. I just want to make sure that we're trying to keep things fluid and keep moving. So, because we do get a lot of time, and I'm hoping to have some caucus time today too. So we'll see how it goes. With that, shall we get started?
Yeah.
All right, so we had some discussions about the sick bank. We looked up the board policy. Thank you for pointing that out, Kevin. And we still decided that we're going to go ahead and give this presentation on the sick bank. Ron has some things he's going to bring up with that. You want to come up here, Ron? Yeah. And then largely it's going to be new language, so it's something that I suspect you'll want to take back and digest a little. But we have some change to sick leave, and we have a big change with the sick bank. So that'll turn up to Ron to talk a little bit about what he's feeling.
Do you have a proposal for us in writing that we can put up on the screen?
Good call. We almost forgot. We did it all day yesterday. Hey, Ty, can you send the word proposal of of union position 18?
18?
Yeah.
On it right now.
It's only been a day and we're already forgetting.
Guys, like my most important job.
All
right, 18 going out now.
All right.
It's on its way.
Okay, got it.
All right, good, right there, right? Okay. Article 18, sick leave. Employees should be able to use their sick leave without fear of discipline or retaliation. Asking to use one sick day a month is really unrealistic. We all earn sick leave, and we should be able to use it as we need. On the creation of the sick leave bank, it would allow us to help fellow members in need, so they, whether it's serious injury, without worry of losing their job, and help provide for their family. The current sick leave bank is different policy and leaves too many areas for interpretation.
Thank you, Ron. And as you can see, I think you'll probably want some time with our sick leave language since it is substantial, a page and a half. But just pointing out that we added a few things that were wanted from our folks. On F, we put in and mental health. And then for obviously so people can utilize a sick day for mental health reasons if they're having issues. And then we just try to clean up further down there. Again, at discretion means that one person can do it one way and another person can do it another way. I think it's clearer if you just say, hey, you need to bring a note, whoever you are, before you return to work, just to make it cleaner and have it applied evenly. And then we put 5 consecutive days. I guess you can interpret it in language that way. I think the concern was that it could be like I have 2 days in September and 1 day in March, and then 2 more days. And I don't know that that's ever happened, quite frankly, but that's why that's in there. And then Ron touched on the other piece, and we talked about it some length yesterday about people using sick leave and about 1 day piece, that kind of stuff. And again, Nancy and Jay talks about what we talked about yesterday in another proposal, just to keep it even, about people who might work because they're out a day or something the previous year, they wouldn't be available for those programs. Oh, actually, I want to talk about number 2 down here too. So these are people that are being hurt on the job. No fault of their own. They're being hurt on the job. Most language that I tend to see, there's usually a 3-year window for them to get healthy, get the therapy they need, and return to work. If they can't do it, then at that point they would be taken off the seniority list. So that's the purpose there. It feels like 1 year is a short time for somebody who might be off, and we're not talking about people that you're typically paying either. They're usually off doing their own thing with their therapy and whatnot. You're not paying them regular salary, that kind of stuff. So that's why that change was made there. It just seemed a little more fair to those folks that got hurt on the job, that we give them the best chance to get back and be able to try to return to work in a job that they love and they want to be in.
So the addition of the mental health, and I know the term mental health day has kind of become a term. Do you have other contracts that have the term mental health in it as an acceptable reason for using sick leave?
Forgive me, I've only been here since October, but I believe we do. But that's something that, like Nancy's question, I can definitely look into before I get back to you the next day about. I know I saw it in some nurses and some doctors' contracts when I was helping out with AFSCME for a little bit on a contract that they were needing help with. They did have those mental days in there for that, because very stressful situation. People being able to use this day as a way to, kind of be able to regather themselves and not have, if they're having some kind of issue, it gives them a chance to step out and get that under control and then be able to come back and work in a, the most productive way for the district, and not making things worse, Did you want to speak to that?
Just in general, it's, there's a lot of stress in a school environment, and, it shouldn't have to wait until that manifests as a physical illness, where you're literally too exhausted to come to work.
Well, I think under state law, if there was a mental health illness that was documented by a physician as being disabling so the person couldn't work, that would be covered under current language. It certainly is covered under current law too. So.
Yes, and that you're absolutely correct, Nancy, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the person who, let's say you have somebody where, I'll give an example from another school district. The teacher was assaulted by a kid, okay? Or actually by 2 kids, and a playground teacher. And so this teacher's understandably shooken, and, they may not have a mental condition, but they definitely need to borrow off so that they can gather themselves and get themselves back to a position where they're not, trying to deal with this trauma and trying to do their job. That's really what we're talking about here. We're not talking about somebody comes to me and says, hey, I have a mental health day. I just want to use mental health day. We want them to give you context so you can identify it properly, and say, oh, okay, yeah, you know what, you got attacked by 2 kids. That makes sense. We want to give you tomorrow to kind of just reconnect with yourself and get back to a good place. That's more of what we're talking about here. And that's why I think you see them in nursing contracts and stuff too, is because of doctors, because they get violent patients, or they get people, like some people are having issues with this whole corona thing, and they're taking those days to just try to refocus where they can. It's hard to do at this time, but they're trying to take them so they can just try to get away for a second and get themselves back to a healthier mental state. That's the idea behind that. It's not for like something where, you know, I have this condition and you're right, that is completely covered under the law and the contract, man.
Well, I have no more questions or comments related to the upper part. And I think that we, as far as the sick leave, your proposal for a sick leave bank that you would manage and monitor, we'll just caucus about at some point before I don't know if there's a need to discuss it.
Okay. That makes sense. It is a lot to go through.
Dan, I have a quick question for you guys and Hobie about number 1F, where it says the employee may, and then you've crossed out at the discretion of the district. So the employee may, prior to returning to work, be required to furnish a reason. If the district isn't going to use their discretion to require that, who would?
Where are you at again?
I'm in 1F.
Oh, well, I think it's 1A, sorry. Okay, 1A.
And I'm wondering, you know, if it's not the discretion of the districts to request that, or to require the letter from the physician, who would it requiring that?
No, and we're getting rid of, yeah, that's a good point. We're not saying you can't require them to bring a note. We're saying we want it applied evenly, so we don't want discretion in there, because now, okay, you do it, but this person over here doesn't do it, and this person kind of does it, and then we want it to be uniform so that everybody's being treated the same. So we could leave the word district in there. You know, that might have been an overstrike on my part. I apologize. There's going to be a few errors there. Yeah, we're not saying you can't ask them for a note. We're not saying that. We're just saying that you got to do it. If you do it for one, you do it for all.
Well, then you should change the word may. Instead of the employee may be required, you should change it to the employee will be required to furnish a reason. Correct?
If you want that every time.
Well, I mean, if that's what you're asking, you should ask it in a way that says it's going to be, you know, they will every time. Otherwise, it's a discretionary choice from the district, right?
Well, I will say this. I look forward to your response to this when you give me a counter, because you can definitely do things, you know, in different ways, and I'm absolutely open to capturing the intent, which is to if you want them to bring a note, you tell them that. We don't have some people doing it, some people not doing it. You're, you know, having different issues like that. So if you have a better way of doing it, I'm absolutely open to that, and look forward to seeing that in account.
You know, that's covered by state law, the 5-day requirement or ability for the district to ask.
Yeah.
I think that the reason why at the discretion of the district is there is that if we require everyone, even, you know, where it's an obvious situation, to provide that. I mean, there is a difference between somebody who's been out for surgery and they had a back issue and they're coming back to an active position, where you want to make sure that they're coming back and healthy enough so that they're not going to re-injure themselves. And that's a kind of example. But otherwise, if you require it invariably for everybody, which I think your proposal, you're indicating that's what you want, that means everybody's got to go to the doctor. And so there's an additional time there. Sometimes it's difficult to get in. So there are reasons why it's been handled that way, because some conditions are much more ones where we have to have verification of the person's ability to return to work before we put them back to the job.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, Nancy. And like I said, the idea here is you do it consistently. So if we have somebody who they've gotten a note from the doctor, they're doing the surgery, they're returning on this date, you don't need a secondary note because you know they're already out and you know when they're coming back. If you have somebody who's out for the flu for a day, you don't want to ask them for a note. You don't have to. The question is, are we doing this in a way that's evenly handed out? So we're not saying, you know what, for flu for you, it's going to be one way. For flu for you, it's going to be the other way. And over here, we're doing the third way, right? So consistency just means that you're doing consistent. I'm absolutely would be happy to look at rewriting that. And I'll try to, Kevin has a good point. We can try to rework that so it captures that. We just want the same rules for everybody. And I think that's just the issue of being fair. And I think being consistent is a way to do that. And we don't have to make it overly complex. We can just say that, if you're out a certain amount of days, you'll bring a note. That's kind of what it kind of says there. So if you're gone 5 days, you have to bring a note if you return. That would be consistent. And then anybody who's under 5 days would, it would be, okay, you don't need to know. That'd be another way to do it. That would be absolutely fine with us too. We're looking for consistency here. We're not looking to be overly burdensome for anybody.
So, Hobie, do you have examples where you believe the district has been discriminatory in who is asked for a return to work for the same number of days as somebody else who's not?
I would say that we've been told examples of people that it's been just not applied the same way for everybody. I don't know if they did it because of any protected class reason, but it hasn't been it hasn't been applied evenly. And so that's why the proposal's here.
Well, I think that you should be sharing those with Dan because we don't countenance any kind of discriminatory application of this. And as far as I know, we've not had any complaints about that have been brought forward to the district. But again, we would make a distinction based upon the kind of injury, the length of time that somebody's been gone, and the kind of work that they're doing when they come back. Those are all valid factors in terms of knowing when a physician's verification would be necessary when someone comes back. So, we can have more conversation about this, but the idea that we're going to be held accountable to some theoretical case there that's never been brought to our attention, we need to have the information if that's going to be the motivation for a proposal.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think we can get you together some of that stuff. That's just like the other things from yesterday. I'll be happy to look into it and get you some responses to that that are more specific. But really, I think this feels like a heavy lift for something that should be relatively easy. We're just saying do it the same way. If 5 days is the trigger for a note, so be it. I don't know why that would be an issue. People under 5 days wouldn't,
Well, I think that the issue, and we don't need to belabor this, otherwise we won't get through the rest of your articles today. But I think that what's at issue here is, if you go to will, then that creates a set of issues because then you're saying everyone will, which then you're forcing everybody back into the doctor, and you're forcing the HR department to or the building principal to manage all of the paperwork coming in, and probably unnecessarily. So the will is problematic, and if it's may, just because you strike out at the discretion doesn't mean that it's probably still going to be management that's going to try to have to decide when we feel we need to and when we feel we don't. And so I'm not sure how we capture the consistency you're looking for, because ultimately that decision is probably going to rest with management, which again, striking out discretion doesn't achieve that. So we'll we can look into that one and probably just go ahead and move on to the next article.
All right. I'll say one small bit about that is that I think we can capture it by, if we just said that anybody's gone out 5 days probably has something really going on. You probably should be to the doctor anyway, right? So if we set that as if you're out 5 days or longer, you know, you guys can tell them to bring a note or whatever. I think that's fine, you know, because people are up with the flu and stuff. It would seem weird to have people being called in one day and then being able to have to bring a note. So, but I don't want to belabor it either, but that's kind of where my head's at on that.
Well, I know that other employee groups would not want that added burden by having to every time there's a 5-day. So.
Sure, and that may be the case. You know, we can have some more discussion about that.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, hey, Ty,
Yes, sir.
you send union position 22, please.
22?
Yep.
Hobie, you're skipping around. Is that intentional? Because you haven't given us a proposal on 20. Does that mean you're not providing a proposal, that we're going to stay with current language, or are we just taking these in an order that's not necessarily numerical?
Yeah, they're initially, we're trying to keep the language stuff together, the financial stuff together, that we're trying to keep it all kind of, but it's not that the contract, so it's kind of spread out. So that's the idea, is to jump around a little, I guess.
All right.
That way.
Dan, I sent that off to you.
Yep. And it's on its way.
Right.
Okay, I've got it.
All right, so I just didn't understand why number 4 was in there. And I started looking at some other contracts, and this is the language that I found. And it basically just refers to that law. You know, it just basically, like it says here, is given a notice of reasonable assurance of continued employment. You know, something you do every year anyway, and send out stuff to the people you want coming back. So I don't know if there's a lot of discussion about this. It's just really just kind of trying to put it in line with what the law says. I don't understand why it says it's not guaranteed any level of employment. They're working for you, they're working for you. I can understand people coming back from a break. And I know you send those letters out every, you know, about this time every year. But that's all this is. It's nothing more than that for us.
Why the deletion of this agreement does not guarantee any level of employment?
Because I think it's covered under the law, under that law, the ORS there. That's like I said, I looked at other contracts. This is the only one I've seen that has that, and I don't understand why it has it. Maybe this is a history lesson from before our time, but I don't know why this is here. Everywhere else it said this that I've got in my areas. And,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with your addition, and I think that we always send those letters out.
Yeah.
31st is the deadline. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it seems like we conflict with the law if we had it, so that's why I deleted it. There's no other intent there other than to follow what the law says, so. We okay to move to the next?
Yeah, fine, I'm moving.
Yep. On to the next.
Can you send out union position 25, please?
25?
25.
All right, article,
Make sure they got it.
It is going out now. Hobie, your 25 is actually 26.
Travel reimbursements?
So, yeah, the one that's number 25 it says 26 contracting out.
Okay, well, there must be a typo on that, so we'll do that one. Ty, do you want to have that?
I haven't gotten, are we getting 25 or 26? And I haven't gotten it yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought Dan sent it out, my bad.
It should have arrived there.
If it's short, I can just read it.
I do have 25 in PDF form.
Okay, so it is 26 here. Okay,
Yeah, it's just mislabeled.
All right, we'll do 25, we'll do 26 since you got it. And then we'll go back to 25, and then we'll send you the PDF of that one, and then I'll get you a Word doc of that one, Dan. All right, so 26, Ty, that's you. Or has everybody got it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted to make sure everyone had it before I.
Yeah, and it's up on the screen.
Okay, go ahead, Ty.
All right, so not contracting out union work will save money by utilizing current district employees as opposed to using a third party that generally operate at a loss. This will also build a sense of community and trust among district staff and students.
So I think this is pretty straightforward. We just don't want you giving our work away to other people. You know, don't see the logic in it, like Ty said, with you know, every year Sodusco's in the red. So this doesn't make a lot of sense from our perspective. I'm sure you have your reasons for doing it, but we just don't feel it's appropriate for our contract.
what work do you know that the district's contracting out?
Food service. What was that? Yeah.
So Nancy, we contract food service through Sodexo. They are our employees, with the exception of one Sodexo manager. And Steve might add a little more detail to this, but the employees are part of the union and our employees.
But we don't prepare.
That's correct. The food service employees are ours. Transportation is fully contracted out at this time.
Right. Correct. That would be the other one. So the other thing too is that Sodexo does all the prep for the food and all that stuff, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Now, there are employees that do all that work. The compliance and management of the day-to-day operations is done by a Sodexo employee. All the rest of the people, including Catherine, who's a manager, is a Silver Falls School District employee.
Yeah,
Right.
supervisors are not part of this bargaining unit anyway, so that's not an example of contracting out bargaining unit work.
The school district asked for proposals for contracting out work from Sodexo.
The district has to go through a state mandated once every 5-year bidding process for food service work as a piece of the USDA regulations to be able to receive funding from the National School Lunch Reimbursement Program. And so that was the process we had to do 5 years. We asked every 5 years, we asked for proposals, both with a model of what we do now with management only from a contractor with our own employees, and also what the cost would look like if we were to have the food service workers also part of the contract, just to see what the cost difference was. We obviously know we weren't obviously would not be able to just switch that over without any sort of a conversation or even passing a state test. But we did ask for bids in both methodologies just to compare the costs.
Gotcha. That's good information. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So really, we're only talking about bus drivers, it sounds like, transportation, basically. Well,
Right.
okay, we may be able to work with that in our caucus then, now that we have that extra information. Appreciate that, Kevin.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we go back to 25?
Nope.
All right, can you send the PDF of that 25, Ty?
Yep, I'm just confirming that it's actually 25.
Thank you. I will send you the Word doc when we're done here today, Dan, or when we go to caucus.
Thank you. And thanks for getting those to us.
So 25 is coming our way.
Yes, 25 is coming here in just a second.
I've got it.
All right, it is off now.
Oh, wait a minute. What I got was contracting out. So,
No, you haven't got it yet, Nancy. That was still 26.
right.
So, it's on its way.
Okay, I have it now.
All right. What you like to say?
All right. For a lot of employees, it is essential they use their personal cell phones, computers, and cars, etc., to perform their jobs. In many cases, they cannot effectively perform without these items. Employees deserve the opportunity to be supplied these required items or be reimbursed for usage. For an example, I am the sub-coordinator for the high school, and I am the facility coordinator for the district. I have to use my cell phone for that because I am contacted several times after hours or on weekends. If this is in their contract, then employees are aware of the benefit.
So, like I said, it's basically just that last sentence there. We've added 2: cell phones, computers, accessories, car, insurance. And the reason it's as if coverages don't meet district minimums, because we have some people that are using their personal vehicles. And yes, I believe that in most cases, if not, or in some cases anyway, they are being reimbursed mileage rates. But the concern there is that, and this is, I guess, maybe more of your concern than ours. If you have a problem, we can take it out. But usually employers that have you use your personal vehicle want certain levels of coverage, right? 25,000 liability may not be enough for what, if somebody is working and they going between places and crash into somebody, they want to sue everybody, that's why I had that last piece. But that's really up to you guys, as is, I guess, any of it. But that's the intent behind this. Pretty straightforward.
Who uses their private vehicles? Which employees in your bargaining unit?
Department,
Pardon?
the tech department, we use our vehicles.
Tech department, okay.
Custodial uses theirs.
I use my own vehicle.
Food service uses theirs.
I use my own vehicle as a facility coordinator because I have to sometimes meet users to give them a tour of the school.
We got a few people here, it sounds like. And like I said, that I put that in just because every job I've worked out where they have used my car, they want certain levels of insurance above and beyond, just the minimums. So it's more of a protection thing for folks. But
Well, has a school district indicated that you need to have certain minimums above the state required minimums?
I don't believe so from my interactions on this subject.
Because, there are a lot of different liability provisions for a public employer than there are for private business. So that may be one of the reasons why in a private business there were some requirements, but there may not be a need for that in public. So I guess we can talk about that and see. I don't know that we have set that as a requirement. So.
Well, and to be really clear, I added that last one because of my past experience. If you're saying that's not an issue here based on the public-private difference, we have no heartburn taking that right off. So just FYI.
Okay.
All right. So we're proposing a new article here. It's Article 28. Ron's going to come on up and talk about that. Can you send that to them, please, Ty?
Article 28.
Yeah. Let's make sure I didn't misnumber it either.
I'm double checking that. Alrighty, Article 28 should be coming now.
It's on its way, and I'm just assuming, so this was also a PDF, which is fine for today.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
You should have a word on that one. I think time might be in the wrong folder.
Okay, I have it.
Okay, well, yeah, we have that in Word, so you probably just got the wrong folder, but
Let's go ahead and stick with the PDF for now. But Ty, if you want to shoot me that when you get a chance, I'll get it to my team. Thank you.
and to be fair, it's all new. So
I'm doing it right now.
Got it.
it's
Thank
all
you.
new language, so
Yeah.
for strikeouts, I think. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. So Article 28 is reclassification procedure. We're bringing it back to the collective bargaining agreement. We had it in our agreement months before, but it was removed. So this will allow employees better awareness of this procedure and give the association more input. It'll help employees get a more accurate job description.
And we are actually, not married to this language. We're trying to give you something to look at, to work with, but we really are the problem we're trying to fix is that we have people who literally told us they do not know what their job is anymore from when they were hired. And that shouldn't happen, right? So their job description doesn't match what they're doing. So we're trying to figure out how to fix that process. So that's one of the things that's the thing we're trying to do here. And I pulled some language from some other contracts that had a process, and it really is a starting point to have that discussion so we can figure out what makes sense for this district and helps people to get a better handle on what their job description is, quite frankly.
So Ron, can you explain to me how that got removed, or if there was a reason why that this process was removed from the contract?
From what I understand, there was a disagreement on the final placement of people at the very end. So they had the superintendent, they had to approve it, which, I mean, it didn't make no sense. I mean, we were trying to get that so it would be.
When did that happen?
Probably 15 years ago, I'm guessing.
It does seem kind of silly to have a committee figure this out and then have one person override the committee. So I guess I can understand that to a degree. But you understand the issue we're trying to resolve here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's,
And is the language you proposed here the same language that got removed 15 years ago?
No.
Okay.
No, because that language didn't work. That's why it got removed. So we thought we'd take a stab at something different and see what you guys thought about it and see what we can figure out together.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, do you have any history with this issue or this previous language?
No, I don't. That would have, I mean, I was an administrator at that point, but wasn't involved in the bargaining 15 years ago. So sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Shall we move to the next?
Yep.
Ty, you can send them the Word version of Article 15, please.
Article 15.
Union 15.
All right, confirming that it's right and sending now.
On its way.
Okay, I have it.
Can you all hear me?
Go ahead.
Yep.
Yep, go ahead.
So we want added vacation days to reflect the time and dedication our employees have put in. We also feel this will help retain employees. Also, employees can use these days for breaks we have throughout the year that are unpaid, so they can spend more time with their families. Being a 10-month employee, I can relate to this.
This is our first attempt at trying to set up something similar to what the 12-month have. Obviously, since it's 10-month, it's a little lesser on some of the steps and whatnot. But we are trying to get the dialogue going on figuring out how we can, you know, better help these folks, you know, have a few days off here and there. And we had, and we want to reward them for their service and time they spend with you guys, you know, as they do their careers here. And we had mentioned earlier where a lot of people save their couple days, precious days they have because of snow days, right? They're not sure what's going to happen there, so they can't really take them. And so that was the concern. And as you heard Kelly say, you know, she can understand that as a 10-month employee that she would be very interested in investing something with this, but I don't know if there's a ton of questions in this one. It's pretty straightforward. We extended out the 12-year a little too, so that it better represents the level of loyalty and hard work those folks have shown you.
Are these paid days off that you're proposing?
Yeah, we just extended out the contract, yes. They would be paid days off based on years of service. It's under vacations, Article 15.
I'll just start by saying it would be very difficult for having 10-month employees to have that many days off and provide, you know, be able to continuous service there, and your title continuous service to students would be very difficult with that many days of vacation, paid days during the course of a school year.
And that's a fair point, and that's what, you know, Kelly had mentioned. You know, we have unpaid weeks during the year, you know, 2 weeks off at the end of the year that's unpaid for those folks. You know, we could utilize some of those times for some of those breaks too, where it would not interfere with, you know, taking care of the children. That's not the plan here to screw up the kids. The plan here is to try to allow these folks to have less unpaid time during the year that they're working for you.
Hobie, do you have any contracts that have paid vacation for 10-month employees?
You know, I do not. I went out and looked at this. I do not. For the 7 chapters that I have, I do not have that. I have some that have more personal days and stuff like that. There is vacation. I found out in a couple of areas in talking to some of my coworkers for 10-month employees. It is something that is, I would say, the majority of contracts that I've heard and talked about does not have. But that doesn't mean that we can't set the tone and be trailblazers and help out these folks that are working hard for you.
I'm pretty sure Dallas does.
Yeah, there is a few that do.
What districts are you aware of that have paid vacation for 10-month employees?
Dallas is the one that Vance just brought up. I know I heard a couple more. I can get you another list if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm curious because the history has been that those paid vacation days have been eliminated, you know, it used to be fairly common at one point, but I think they've been eliminated over the years. So I can check on Dallas and, yeah, let me know if there's any others that you come across because it's a rarity.
Well, we have a chance to change that, Nancy.
Well, I think that the reason that Dan stated was that a good many of our 10-month employees are direct service to students, and a lot of them are involved in the special education program. It's a place where consistency of having a certain person, a consistent staff to interact with those students becomes very important. That's one of the major reasons I think that there's been, you know, a move away from vacation, but cost is the other, I guess, because,
Sure.
So.
Yeah, and I can understand both those reasons, and that's why we want to have the discussion to figure out what makes the most sense. Like I mentioned before me, Kelly did, there could be ways where we're talking about paid break time versus where they don't get to pick the days. It's the, you know, you get spring break pay, or you get, or not spring break, but you get like, you know, the Christmas break, or you get like the break in winter, you know, the winter break. You get these different breaks where you have a week off for a week. Maybe we would pay them for that rather than have the hardship of not being able to have an income for a week. And then they would not conflict at all with child, you know, taking care of the child, because we don't want that either. You know, I'm a father, and many people here are, you have kids, they don't want them to suffer. The idea is to figure out a way to not have the worker suffer either, be able to spend time and have a little more security so they don't have to worry about, scraping by paycheck to paycheck. So that's the idea here, just family time. Any other questions about that one?
I don't have any.
Vance 33.
All right, can you send them 33?
33,
Who's this 33, please? Word.
confirming it really quick.
The new article?
It's a new article. Yes, Nancy, thank you.
And sent.
And it's on its way.
Okay, Article 33 is for uniformed employees.
I haven't gotten it yet. Hold on. Okay, now I have it. Thanks.
Okay, so Article 33 is uniformed employees. It's a new article which would make our jobs more appealing to a group of well-deserved individuals and support them in their time of need. This would help new employees or uniformed employees by covering the government's initial lag time of paying them.
So pretty clear here, all new. We're trying to help out the folks that are keeping us safe. And at first, in discussions I've had with many other folks, that 2 weeks where they're moving people around and doing different things, it creates a lot of havoc for them and their paychecks, and they're typically not paid as well either. But we're just trying to figure out a way to attract more of those folks to come work for the district. I don't think anybody would argue they'd probably be a good asset to skills they gain, good asset for the district to have on the payroll. And we're trying to thank them for their service by taking care of them when they do get deployed and whatnot. So pretty straightforward. It's language pulled word for word out of another contract. Not trying to reinvent the wheel, just trying to have a point where we can start having the discussion about what makes sense, if this is something that we want to do, if we want to offer this benefit to these folks.
Where did you pull this one from?
What's that?
Where did you pull this one from?
I'll have to double check that. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I can definitely get you that information.
So this is United States Reserve. We do have, I know, State Reserve who have this benefit. It has been defined by the Attorney General as being 11 work days, 15 calendar days for like summer training and so forth, if it falls in a time when you are normally working. So are you of the belief that people in the United States Reserve don't get this benefit?
I'm not sure. When I dug around on this, I didn't see anything that guaranteed, through the contract itself, especially, that these people would receive pay of any kind. So if we can come to some agreement on this, just following the law and have some discussions about that, that might suffice, but I don't know is the answer, Nancy. I did look around on this and I couldn't get a response. So to be fair, I didn't contact our attorneys. But I can definitely look into that as well if you'd like and get that to you.
Yeah, as I said, I know that this law, that this protection exists under the state law for state reserves. So the question is whether it's United States reserves are also covered under this. So yeah, you might check that out. See.
Yeah, I'll check the Fed part, and we'll see what I come back with.
Mm-hmm.
But the intent here is to just try to make sure people are covered and to get them to be, we want to attract them to these jobs, but they tend to be people who make serious commitments, right? So they're probably not going to come and quit on you after 5 days or something,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Go ahead, that's good. Any other questions about this?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so going back to Article 20, can you pull up union position 20 in the Word doc? Ty?
Yes, sir. Number 20.
Correct.
All right, send now.
On its way.
Okay, I have it.
All right, Ty, go ahead.
All right, so having a technology training fund will further the technology capabilities for our tech department and keep them up to date on new standards and technologies that are released. The ability to certify the tech department furthers our capability to help staff, students, and it will also help with retention and growth of our team.
All right, so at the top there, you can see the cell phone, computer, accessory, car insurance, that's just mirroring exactly what was in the other one, so it's consistent. I didn't understand why you would have district policy and not just the current IRS rate. It seemed to make way more sense, and I don't think we're trying to pay people less than the law, so that's the change there. I feel like mostly housekeeping, but maybe it's not. And like Ty said, we're trying to get people to stay in these jobs and come in these jobs and get more, more training so they can be more valuable to you. And it gives them the benefit of getting some of this training on the job. And so it could potentially be a win-win, but it is very much just a starting place. We wanted to have something to give you and kind of see what you guys thought about this, and see what kind of thoughts you had about how we can accomplish this.
In an example, I'm spending my own money to get certified in security concepts that then I can hopefully, develop and pass on to the district.
So in terms of the IRS rates, does the district have a policy on mileage? Because I know that a number of districts do. Dan, do you know?
Not off the top of my head. Steve might be able to interject there and what the practices have been.
Oh, there's a travel policy. I'll have to go back and read it. I don't believe that we're required to reimburse at the IRS rates. The IRS rates, they're set every year, and if we were to go above those rates, that part of it could be taxable. We have typically matched the IRS rate, but I don't believe it's a requirement. So I don't believe this is a housekeeping issue by changing that language.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll have to double check that. Fair
enough. So I guess we need to figure that out on your end. If you get back to me on that, because obviously it would seem that we would just look at the IRS rates. It's literally one type away, so.
Well, but it locks you into one particular thing, and I think the policy might be written to have a little more flexibility. But again, that'll be something that we can check on.
Yeah, we can look at what the district policy is on travel reimbursement.
Yep. All right. I'll wait to hear back from you on that one then.
So this proposal is specifically for technology training, and I know that I have heard that we have a considerable amount of training going on for special education assistants, and even during the COVID break period here, have had continued education going on. So, but I gather that what you're talking about is there's a specific lack of available funding for technology training, so that this is a place where a supervisor doesn't have that built into the budget or something like that for technology training. Is that the idea?
You got it right, Nancy. We're trying to get people that'll come, and then the trade-off for them is that they get to learn some new stuff, and then, build some loyalty with you guys, and then you get their skills, right? That's the idea here. We're trying to figure out a way to do that for the technology folks specifically.
I think in the last bargaining session 3 years ago, we added some funds for, I don't know if it was tuition reimbursement, professional development, or a little bit of both. I'm not sure. That wasn't in there before, so I think we need to go back and take a look at the contract to see what's there and what exists as of this point in time.
Yeah, if you want to get back to us on that, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
What's meant by you must be a seniority employee to be eligible to use this fund? What's that trying to achieve there?
What we're trying to achieve there is we don't want somebody who, let's say we don't change the requirements in 6 months for them to make it. They come in, they get some training, and then they say, see you, sucker, and they leave, right? We don't want that. We want them to be there, to be invested, and, you know, not to use you to get their training paid and then take off. That's not the plan here. We're meant to use this for people who have seniority, who are working there, who made the commitment, and are planning to be with you. That's the idea. We put that in there because I've seen that happen in other contracts where they don't have that, and somebody comes in, and especially if they have a lengthy seniority period, they get all this training, and then they go work for somewhere else for more money, right? That's not what we're trying to accomplish here, right? It's kind of a waste of all of our time. So, but we can talk about changing that if it's bothering you.
So a seniority employee means a non-probationary employee.
Correct.
Okay.
We can change the verbiage too if that helps. That's the intent though.
Now, was this intended to be for the tech department? Because I'm sure that there's a lot of employees that would in across the association that would say that they could use more technology skills.
I think the idea was for the tech department, but we could have some discussions around that. I mean, I can't imagine every year you'll be using whatever the amount you agreed on every year. You know, just for tech department, there could be other things, right? I think we'd be open to having some of those discussions if you had some ideas you wanted to send our way.
And so, go ahead,
I'm
Steve.
sorry, Dana, isn't there a number of training that occurs for our 65 special needs assistants?
Yeah, over the last few years, we've used our PLC days to hold specific trainings, and those haven't been just specifically for the SNAs, but have been open to all the EAs and anyone that works in a building. We currently have a Google Classroom set up for all classified employees of the district to access, and they've been running online trainings on those the last 2 or 3 weeks. I guess my question on this is it just specifically, this is just specifically for technology employees, or are you trying to get at additional training for all classified employees?
I think the intent behind it, well, I know the intent behind this was to help your tech people get the certifications they need, stuff that you typically wouldn't train everybody for, but get more certifications that are tech related to database administrating or whatever. And the training classes, but it does say training classes, certifications for classes. So it could be expanded if we wanted to have that discussion. We could talk about how we can utilize this in a more broad way, in a less limited way, as long as we're making sure that we're figuring out a way that tech department's not getting, you know, skipped on this process too, right? Because some of the stuff they need, and I can let Ty talk about this more, but some of the stuff they need, like if you're a database administrator, you're going to need certain skills that nobody else in that building is going to need, you know, you know, that's something where maybe you know SQL, server SQL, but you need to know Oracle, right? Well, getting that kind of training is not going to be something that most people are going to use outside of people in the tech area that are specifically doing it. So, did you want Chip type in on this time?
Yeah, I was going to ask. So a lot of this was built from, I'm part of the tech department, and a lot of the trainings that do get offered in the district are not entirely relevant to us. And so being able to have somebody on the team be Network Plus or Security Plus certified only adds value to the tech team in general. There wasn't necessarily trying to go for, for it being so exclusive, but that was the intent behind this.
Are there opportunities offered within the current technology budget right now?
Yeah, we do try to find some opportunities, but it is limited. I know we generally will make a decent amount. We'll put a decent chunk of change aside to send people to ACPE, which is a really good resource. And last year, I think it was last year, we were able to go to me, Drew, and a few of our tech students were able to go to B-Sides Portland, which is a cybersecurity conference, which was also very valuable for me and for the students as well. So we do try to make opportunities.
Yeah, so there's some good basic kind of structure there now, but it would be good to try to expand a little bit. And also there might be some things that you're doing kind of on your own that you could coordinate through Drew or your supervisor that might even look more like a tuition reimbursement type of a thing, like what teachers do or something, if it's set up in that type of a way or something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what we're getting at, is trying to get them the specific skills they need. Like Ty said, we're not opposed, to broadening it a little bit. We don't need to make it totally exclusive, but some things are only that department's going to use. So if you have some ideas about how we can do that, remember, as I keep saying, these are starting points. We want to give you something to look at. So, we're trying to figure out how to fix that problem. And if we've got a plan that we can look at, that would be great. We'd absolutely be willing to take a look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this is an article where we've been making efforts to provide more professional development. It's certainly something that we are open to looking at. I did have one final question. So we would need to negotiate this annual amount each year, and if no funding could be agreed upon, then the district's obligated for 1,000. Is that how I read that? So there would be an annual negotiating of an amount?
You'd only be held to that if you're TAing it today, Dan. So we were throwing that out there as trying to say, look, we want to put something in the fund, because even in tough years, if you put a little in the fund, you can train people and make them more valuable to you, and hopefully keep them hanging around, but also have more value added to your employees for you. That's the idea behind that language. Like anything else, we're not totally married to that. We just figured we should put down some dollar number, and that's what came up.
Yeah, and I mean, the dollar amount is just a number, and especially if, I can speak for the tech department, we're really good at kind of round robining training for some people. We'll send one person to ACPE, or we'll switch out somebody to go to ACPE or not. So we try to share the wealth of knowledge amongst us.
Yeah. Great.
Any other questions?
I don't have any.
Nope.
Ty, can you send unit position number 29? This is another new article.
Number 29?
Please, the Word doc.
Okay. It is going out now.
On its way.
Good day.
I got it.
Lisa?
All right. As we all know, childcare expenses can be costly. Employees are having to choose to stay home because they can't afford the expense. The cost can literally take most of your paycheck. The district needs to offer financial assistance which will boost employee retention and dependability.
The ideal behind the stipend is that, and the 3,600 is pulled directly from a Google search on the average, that we could find. But the idea behind it is that these folks, we don't want them to have to choose between taking care of their kids and being able to come to work for you. Because oftentimes they make the right choice to take care of their kids, but they can't work, right? So we realize this is new. We realize it's a good chunk of change, and it could add up quickly. But really, we wanted a starting point to have some discussion. And different places deal with this different ways. Some places have on-site childcare. Some places do other things with stipends, or they break it down a little differently. But we wanted to start having the discussion to see if we could figure out something for this that could work here in the Silver Falls School District. So that's all this is, just a starting point.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
I don't either.
Okay, we're going to move to union position 16. If you can send that Word document, Ty, I'd really appreciate it.
Number 16.
The Word docs, yeah.
Does not look like I have a Word doc version of that, so I will switch to the PDF version. And confirm. And sent.
On its way.
Got it.
Let's wait for the next screen.
Okay.
All employees should receive holiday pay as they are equal, regardless if they are 10 or 12-month employees. 10-month employees should be paid for all holidays within their 10-month work period. This will help with morale and retention. I can tell you firsthand, this is the first time, my only job, I don't get these paid.
So it's pretty straightforward here, what we're talking about. We're trying to expand the holidays. We're trying to make sure especially the 10-month employees are getting the holidays that they're working around. So obviously the 4th of July is not on there for the 10-month employees because they're not here typically in the summer. So that's the idea. We're trying to have New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve for the 12 months added in because those are important holidays, and we would like to see those holidays expanded there. This idea of, we've crossed out some of these asterisk stuff that talks about you can't take the day before as a personal day before a holiday if you're on a long weekend. Obviously, when you only have a few days, unless we agree to something different with our vacation schedule and previous proposals, you want to make the most of them. So it would kind of make sense to do this, for those folks. So that in a nutshell is it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward what we're asking for there.
So there are additional holidays here added for the less than 12-month. I think I see those as being bold-faced. Friday after Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve and Day.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving Day, so those are,
right.
and Christmas Eve.
Yeah, we're mirroring the 12-month, what we're saying the 12 months should get. We're mirroring that with the 10, with the exception of the 4th of July, because all these other holidays are the same. These workers are working the same, around like the 12 months, are working the same weeks and whatnot. But the 4th of July, they're not here for that typically, so we didn't include that holiday.
Mm-hmm. So the less than 12-month and part-time employees then Right now, it looks like they have 5 holidays, and this would go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 11 holidays then.
Yeah, we just mirror the full-time with the exception of the 4th of July.
Mhm.
I don't have any questions. If
Any more
anyone,
questions?
okay.
Okay, should we move to the next article then?
What number is that?
That's going to be union position number 10. You can send that one through, and we will go ahead and
Number 10.
number 10, yeah.
All right, it is going out now.
Okay, I've got it. All right.
All right, Vince.
Okay, so over grievances, the changes in this article, we're looking at cleaning up the process as well as adding equal responsibility to both parties by giving adequate time for such process.
And there's a few different changes in here that I think the second page is primarily housekeeping, but the first page there is some changes on here. As you can see, just starting at the top, we are trying to say if we have a grievance, we want it to be on any subject that comes up here, simply because it seems silly to me, my personal opinion, and I think it's shared by some of our team member here, that we would go to like bullying or we would go to a board charge. We should try to handle this stuff internally at the lowest level, and not excluding that process, having it open to all of us so that we can try to deal with these things here. Those other processes should be, we don't really need other people telling us our business, how to have our relationships, do what we're doing. And that's my concern with having it so restrictive. Then if you go down to 1 under D, you can see we struck out some of this language here. And the reason why is like what Vance is saying, you know, if it's going to be, if we don't meet our timelines, it's going to be game over for us. It seems only fair that it goes both ways. And we should be able to, we're all adults here, we should be able to meet our timelines. We should, you know, shouldn't get a free jail free card if we don't. And that's the concerns there. And then down below 3, it just echoes what it says above with the grievance definition. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of discussion about this, but the intent behind this is to keep things in-house, deal with them at the lowest level, not have 3 different procedures for something that we could do in one. And that's the idea behind this, and to make it a little more equitable.
So, Hobie, I didn't hear this business about you wanted to change this so that it could be resolved at the lowest possible level.
Yes, right. Because the way I read it now is if we have a complaint and it's not something that, oh look, here it is right in this particular section of the grievance, but it might be a violation of the law, let's say, or a violation of something else. You know, we'd have to go through a separate process. And now the potential of somebody from ERB or from, you know, bully, you know, coming in and dictating it to us what's going to happen versus us being able to, you know, file a grievance, go through the process, try to find a resolve at that lower level. That's the idea behind these changes, that we're going to have these discussions and keep control of the process, and, you know, not have a third party getting involved when we can probably resolve a lot of these things, you know, through our normal process. But telling people, oh, well, that's not a word out of the specific section of the contract, word for word, so we're not going to accept it. That creates those kind of headaches, I think.
Well, Hobie, under that rationale, we should eliminate binding arbitration, because an arbitrator is an outside person, a third party. Heck, most of them on the herb list live in places like North Carolina, Wisconsin, Missouri. They've never set foot in Oregon before. So why is it that you aren't eliminating arbitration then if we're going to resolve all these things locally?
Because the idea is that, no matter how good we are at having these discussions, getting stuff resolved, even reasonable adults sometimes have fundamental differences that we do have to bring a third party in. But it should be from the jump. It should be from the start. It should be, we really have not been able to resolve this. And so now we really do need the guidance of a third party. It shouldn't be, well, you don't get the file agreement, it's not in the contract, so you know what, we're gonna go to this party over here. It feels like we've gone from 0 to 60 in a space where, it's like 2 seconds where we could have done that, even if it's to an arbitrator, over a series of, following the timelines over a series of weeks and months to get to that point and try to really resolve this. That's why we keep a clause in there for the arbitrator. Sure, nothing stops people from going to BOLI, but that's not our goal, right? Our goal is to work on this locally and try to get this resolved without, those people always have those processes, but just sending people there seems silly when we can try to resolve these locally and get them done. Because often I've found nobody's really happy with the decisions that come out of those places. I mean, every once in a while you get a great one, but realistically, they tend to put handcuffs on both parties. And I'm trying to avoid that by allowing Dan and Vance and folks and me, if I need to be involved at some point, to resolve these things here. We really should be going to those outside parties unless we have no other option, right?
Well,
Don't those
school board step here. So how many grievances has the association brought to the school board level even over the last term of this contract?
I've only been here since October, and we had a couple that got close, but we've been able to actually deal with those because they were in the contract. So I don't know the answer to that, Nancy, but I don't know that we wait, till the house is on fire before we buy, fire insurance, right? I think we try to resolve it before it becomes a problem, and foster that growth and that trust between these folks so they can have these discussions and feel good about it versus having to go and fill out a paper and send it to somebody else. I don't see what you lose here, but that's just my take, I guess.
Well, I just think that those local agencies, as before arbitration, I mean, they provide predictability because you have local case law or BOLI making rulings on things that we can then, before we make monumental decisions, we know it's predictability. The removing those things and going to arbitration, there's very little predictability. So I think that the purposes of BOLI, our local school board, certainly allow for a great deal of predictability for both the association and the district to kind of know how things are going to shake out.
Furthermore, I don't think that legally you can take away from an individual employee the opportunity to go to BOLI. We could not require that all of those go through the grievance process because those are individual rights, and so there wouldn't be any way to force that they all go that way anyway. So I don't think that it's possible to do it.
No, I said that earlier, that they still can go through those processes, but having an option is the point that I was making, is that you're right, we cannot stop them from doing those things. However, most of the people in my career would rather file a grievance so that they can try to resolve whatever it is. If we're talking about something like Corona, okay, that's not something we're going to deal with, through filing a grievance and going through that process. It's too big of an issue. We have to get guidance from it all over the place, but we're not talking about that 9 times out of 10. We're talking about something that is a technical violation, which can result in a fine, and somebody can file it. Great, they can do all that, but realistically, if we have the ability to say, hey, I want to file a grievance to make this point, this is happening, and then we sit down and we can get some resolution, that settles it. I don't, you're right, things that arbitrators are not necessarily predictable. I mean, we all think we know how they're gonna do things and that they tend to surprise us. But I think that that's a process you already have in the contract, but also in addition to that, it's something that we do very little, right? Most of these things are resolved at lower levels. That's been my experience of doing this for almost 25 years, is that most of these things, the grievance allows the person to put on notice, this is what the issue is. And I think like Dan said, it's a good way to hold us accountable to meeting and talking about it. If we file grievances and do that stuff, you know, and it helps us to deal with the issue faster, you know, if we have a timeline. So I think there's an upside. I hear what you're saying, and maybe we just won't agree at the end of the day, but that's our intent. And we're trying to balance it out a little bit here, make it a little fairer, and make the process a little more open so that people can feel like that they can do this and get their issues resolved and not have to do these other things. But technically, nothing can stop them, you know, from doing it if they want to do it.
Well, isn't that a matter of education for your employees that the union can provide? Because the board has complaint procedures. We have policies on all sorts of subjects that have a local complaint process, you know, so that we can get these things resolved. I mean, it seems to me that that's something, sort of an education piece here, that people don't read the policies. Obviously, that sort of depend upon you guys to educate them about the policies as well as the contract. So, you know, I'm not sure that there's a lack of ability to resolve things on local level. It just, maybe those processes aren't being used. So
Yeah, there might be some of that going on. There might be somebody not using those processes because they don't know about them or whatnot. That's entirely possible. I guarantee you I don't know all the board stuff yet. Having said that, you know, having the ability to say, hey, we're going to have this discussion within this many days, so we know what's going to happen, things like that. Having a structure that people can look at and say, I know I don't need to go deal with this over here, you know, other process, because with the state or whoever, I know that within this amount of days we're going to be having this discussion, right? I know it's going to happen, you know, in this timetable. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get my chance to have my, you know, my say and be able to make folks aware in a process that is controlled by both parties, for starters, not just by the board.
Can you give me an example of a single situation where there isn't a local procedure for resolving a problem?
Well, since I just stated that I don't know all the board policies yet, I couldn't even attempt to answer that question because I don't know what your policies are if that process exists for different issues, right? But I think this is
they're in the policy book. I mean, we have a general complaint policy that exists that can be used to bring forward virtually any complaint. And it goes through steps, local steps, starting with the supervisor, then with an administrator, and then generally to the board. So I guess maybe when we have more discussion about this, you need to bring us some examples of some things that you think you haven't been able to deal with locally, and maybe we can take a look at some of those policies, because I think they're there. They're just, people aren't aware of them. So.
Well, and honestly, I think it misses the bigger point of what I'm saying. So I don't think we'll do that. I think that we're trying to say that we're trying to lay out a fair process that's fair for both sides to be able to bring up concerns, whatever they may be, to deal with them. If we're not interested in that, we're not interested in that. I just, that's what we're trying to do. That's what this is trying to accomplish. If you have some ideas about how we can do that, that isn't exactly what I gave you, I'm totally willing to look at that. There's more than one way to bake the cake, right? We're trying to get things figured out in a way that's worked for both parties. But that is our end goal, is to be able to have these discussions through this process.
So if I can, I'm just wanting to clarify here now that I've had a chance to kind of look over some of the cross outs. So if I look at under definitions, and then we have time limits, and then 3, and there's some cross outs there. And then if I go down and I go to procedure and I look at number 2 and I see a cross out there. And then if I keep going down and I go to 5 and I see a cross out there, all of these crossouts are referring to, are tying a grievance procedure to the contract. And so, and I'm just wanting to clarify here that your aim is allowing the grievance procedure to be a dispute that you are saying is a dispute in your eyes, not tied to the contract.
I would say largely it's tied to the contract. There's always little weird things like that pop up, you know, that nobody in their right mind thought about, you know, because it wasn't an issue years ago. I remember when texting became a thing and phone usage became an issue in certain places, right? Well, of course, the contract didn't say anything about that. So it spawned a grievance, and we were able to settle that grievance and, you know, have the appropriate, you know, settlement that both sides felt good about. And then, sure, when we do the next bargaining, we would roll that into that if it made sense still. So, yeah, people should feel free to be able to express concerns they have. I mean, I guess I don't know what the downside of that is, unless we don't want people to do that. So
the downside is predictability, because if you deem something disputable to the level of a grievance, but you know, the contract serves as our roadmap. It serves to keep both sides in check. And so if the grievance procedure is kind of an unlimited process, how can we predict what's going to happen?
well, I would say that, I mean, to answer your question, you know, in all these years in the private sector, they figured it out. And I can't imagine that you guys are much different in handling grievances. I mean, it's something that usually 99% of these get resolved at a lower level. And then of the 1% that go up, about 0.1% of that 1% get arbitrated. Usually it's a great tool most employers have used to ferret out problems before they become, you know, huge issues where people start to, you know, really get invested in ways that are not good, and want to file these complaints just because they can file them and stuff like that. So,
Well, you know, I think probably what we need to do, since you're not familiar with the policy book, is that we need to go, when we come back, we'll come back with information about all of the different places that the policy book provides for people to resolve disputes. And so it seems to me that's maybe just more a matter of a lack of awareness of the procedures that already exist. So maybe we should start there rather than to look at the specifics, because what I understand is that you're looking for a procedure to resolve problems at the lowest possible level. And I think that there's lots and lots of that in the policy book, but maybe right now we'll just, I think we can move on and come back, and that'll be part of our response.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, I mean, I'm all for solving problems at the lowest level and everything like that. I mean, so if we can provide some ways that we already do that, or some, I'm all for that. I just, opening up grievances and arbitrations to things not tied to the contract, I'm just concerned about.
and you know, maybe just thinking out loud, or maybe one solution would be just to agree to follow your policies. We can do that simple, that it's policies or it's contract. Otherwise it doesn't exist, right? So that's something to think about, but you're right, Nancy. I think we probably can move on from that. So, Todd.
Yes, sir.
You send the Word version of Union Position 21, please.
What article?
21?
21.
21.
Okay, confirming. Okay. And sent.
It's on its way, and I have to like that my computer's smarter than me. So all I got to do is type N, S, K, D, J, and T, and it automatically knows who I'm sending it to. It's picked up on the pattern.
Yeah, you've overtaken Drew in my autocomplete now.
Okay, so 21, right? Okay,
And this year, I'm sure you recognize, Nancy, it's boilerplate language for many, many, many contracts, not this one. So, and it's just to give us the most flexibility when it comes to the ability to safeguard our interests. And I'll be blunt about it, that's what it is. I don't expect everybody to be able to TA this today. But it does safeguard our interests, and that's what we're looking at here. It's probably one I suspect you want to dig into a bit, look at, and come back with a formal response. But I will.
well, I'm looking at this part that you added.
Sure.
That's a violation of the law right there. Neither the party shall cause, either directly or indirectly, any stoppage of work, strike to cross a lawful picket line. You cannot cross a picket line. I mean, you've got to cross a picket line if it's not your own bargaining unit.
I'll take a look at that. It's my understanding under the federal laws that you cannot be forced unless you don't.
Yeah, we aren't under the federal law. We're under PECPA, and PECPA has a specific provision that says that you guys classified, if the teachers were striking, you have got to cross the picket line. It is not an option. It's not something we can bargain about. It has been determined by the legislature. And so that provision would be unlawful to put in the contract.
Okay, and that's a fair point. I will follow up with you on that. I'll get back to you on that.
Mhm.
Like I said, my understanding is from the federal level, not the state level. So
Yeah, no, we aren't covered by the National Labor Relations Act. We're covered by PECPA.
Yeah, I will get back to you on that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Okay, so now I have a different kind of proposal here. So it's been going for a few hours here. Some people are definitely needed the facilities here. But rather than, we have a final bundle package. And so what I thought I would do is send that to you because it is kind of dense. I want you to have time to look through it and then come back, and then we can go through it and go, through the different points. Does that sound reasonable?
So this is insurance and
Insurance, wages, it's
okay.
length of contract, management rights, it's a whole bunch of stuff.
All right.
Not a whole bunch, but it's a few things. So.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me. So do you have other articles that you, or are we at the end of the proposal?
That was the final one.
Okay. So this would be, as I see it, Article 4, which is insurance.
We'll have insurance, we'll have wages, we'll have union rights, we have management rights, and I think we have the little pay scales. That's it.
Okay, management rights is 2, no,
6.
6. Okay, gotcha. All right, so do you have a proposal on management rights?
It's all bundled together here.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, send it all to you in one bundle. Take like a half-hour break. That way you have time to review, people have time to use the facilities. If you need more time, you can text us back. But when we come back, then we can have a discussion about the packet. If that's okay.
So Ty's sending that to us.
Yes, I'm looking for, I'm sending SF bundle proposal Word document.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sending
And then-
that to Dan now.
All right.
And then Ty, if you could, if possible, Ty or Hobie, the 1 or 2 that were sent PDF, if you can find the words on the Word documents on those, that'd be great, because I appreciate your highlights on those.
Yeah, we'll do that on the break.
Yeah, I'll
Perfect.
double check my email. Maybe something just didn't get dragged over.
All right, thank you. And so yeah, we'll look that over. So do we want to just go 4:15?
Sounds good.
So just a minute, wait, I haven't gotten that yet.
I'm sending it, Nancy.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're not gonna leave you out, I promise.
okay, so, Obi, are you indicating that this is the final package of all remaining proposals from your team?
That's it.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's see if I've gotten that. So right now it is 3:38. So I guess everybody probably needs a break. And then we'd come back with any questions we have about this package proposal. Is that the idea?
Yeah, the idea is we'll come back, well, if there's questions about this, we can I can answer those questions for you. And then my goal is that we then caucus for the remainder of our time so we can start working on counters, like the counters you sent us, you can work on yours. We can have something hopefully for tomorrow.
Okay, so that we would be ready to bring in some counter proposals tomorrow when we can convene it too.
That's the idea, if you guys are good with that.
Okay, all right, that works for us. All righty, I see that I've gotten the bundle proposal. For my team, if we want to take a short break and then just get back together again so that we can, by 4:15, be ready to go back with the association.
5 or 10 minute break, team. Which do you prefer? 5 minutes. Or me? All right, so I'll send out a Google Meet I'll send a Google Meet out now, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
If you need more time, Dan, just text me, okay?
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we're going to sign out here.
So there we have a mountain one in the tree, and maybe you can see here.
Yes. Which means, yeah, and you guys are wanting to replace session, so I'm gonna have to, I mean, it's not too much to ask.
We can back together.
I'd have to download it, merge it, and upload it. But, yeah, get up with that. I thought you guys were gonna caucus in the other room, that's why I was.
Yeah, we talked about earlier, maybe staying here, since they're all going off the meeting right now, for the webinar.
Yeah.
But if it's a big thing in the butt, it's like.
Let me see your conditions there real fast. You can like a pause it.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yes.
Hobie, we ready to go? I don't care. I don't know if Drew needs to have me visible or not. I'm sure my shiny head you could do without. So, are we ready to roll?
We're good to go on this end, yeah.
And Drew, is the rest of my team in here?
Yeah, I'm in, but I can't be shown, but.
It looks like everything's being enabled for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we your bundle package had one clarifying question. Steve had a clarifying question on the number 9 on what related to the longevity stipend. So Steve has a question there, and then it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was just, it said 5% once hit year 8. I don't have it up here in front of me anymore, but is that 5% each year after getting to year 8?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
So as we talked about yesterday and during our opening statements, the district is, will be waiting for tomorrow's revenue forecasts and potentially and more likely waiting for the legislature to be brought back into session before we'll be able to provide a counter proposal on economics. So that's where we're at on that for the time being. And I think our thoughts now are to, and I think that's what we said right before we went to caucus, was that we would spend the rest of our time gearing up for tomorrow to be able to provide some counter proposals. So
Correct.
either, okay, anybody else from my team have anything then to add? Nancy?
No, I think that best use of our time for both teams is to spend, and we'll do as much as we can, starting with articles I think that are fairly short, or ones where there are specific but simple kinds of changes that are being proposed. We'll try to get a group of those together so we can make some progress tomorrow. Hopefully TA some articles tomorrow. And I guess if you guys take a look at our proposals on some of those same articles, although we only have 4 proposals really besides the economics. So, but we'll be back at 2:00 then tomorrow, ready to tackle some of the language and hopefully get some of that resolved. So.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Nancy. I think you only have 4 proposals, but we do want to work on them and try to get back something to you, since you were nice enough to give us those proposals. So we will be hard to work at that, and we'll use the remainder of today, and we're going to get together a little beforehand to try to get those, at least some responses to those 4 for you, okay?
Okay.
And I know the finances, I know we're all kind of in a holding pattern, and depending on the length of our contract here, those numbers might look better, but we understand you're waiting for that, and that's totally understood.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, folks. And I guess our team is going to reconvene then on our separate.
Yep. All right. Have a good afternoon, everybody.
Appreciate all your time. Thank you.
You too.
Yeah.